Have you ever wondered how one small act of kindness, one simple choice in the middle of an ordinary day, could end up changing your life forever? Picture this. The sky is dark, snow is falling so heavily that the roads vanish beneath white blankets, and a man with nothing more than a worn coat and a stubborn heart stops on a lonely highway when everyone else keeps driving. What he didn't know, what he couldn't have imagined, is that the stranger he chose to help was not just any, she was a billionaire, carrying with her a gift that would transform his world in ways he never believed possibly. Broken bar. The snowstorm came in fast that night, in the small town of Brookdale. Winters were always harsh, but this one was different. The wind howled like a beast, rattling windows and burying streets in minutes. For most, it was a night to stay indoors with warm soup and a blanket. But for Daniel Hayes, a mechanic in his late 30s with oil-stained hands and a heart weighed down by bills he couldn't pay, there was no choice but to be out. His old truck had to keep running. He needed every extra shift he could find just to make sure his little sister, Emily, had her school fees covered. Their parents had died young, and Daniel had carried the role of brother and parent all at once. That night, all he wanted was to get home, maybe sit in silence for a few hours before another long day. But fate had other plans. As his headlights cut through the wall of snow, Daniel spotted something that made his chest tighten. A black luxury car, stranded at the side of the road, its hazard lights blinking faintly like a distress signal in a storm. Most drivers passed by without slowing down. No one wanted to risk freezing out there, but Daniel couldn't. He pulled over, his boots crunching into the snow as he fought the biting wind. Approaching the car, he saw the driver's window roll down slowly, revealing a woman shivering, her breath visible in the freezing air. She had a fur coat, diamond earrings that sparkled even in the dim light, but her eyes were filled with panic and helplessness. "Please," she said, her voice trembling. "My car just a broken bar died. I don't know what happened, and my phone lost signal. I've been here for over an hour." "I thought a broken bar. I thought I was going to freeze." Daniel gave her a small reassuring smile, though his own hands were numb. "You're lucky I came by. Don't worry, I'll take a look." She blinked at him as though he were a miracle. Most men would have seen the jewelry, the car, the wealth written all over her and assumed she could handle herself. But Daniel didn't care about any of that. He popped the hood, crouching in the snow as icy flakes stuck to his eyelashes. The engine was complicated, far more advanced than the usual cars he worked on in his tiny shop. But after years of tinkering with machines, he understood enough to know what had gone wrong. The battery had died, drained completely by the freezing temperatures. "It's the battery," he shouted over the wind. "I've got jumper cables in my truck. Give me a minute." She watched as he moved quickly, his breath turning into clouds, his clothes far too thin for weather this cruel. Still, he worked without complaint, connecting the cables, starting his own truck, transferring just enough life into her car to get it running again. When the engine finally roared back, her relief was so strong she nearly cried. "You saved me," she whispered, rolling the window down again as warmth began to return to her car. "Yeah, broken bar. I don't even know how to thank you." Daniel shrugged, brushing snow off his jacket. "No thanks needed. Just be careful out here. This storm's not forgiving." But she wouldn't let him leave. Something about his face, the weariness in his eyes mixed with the quiet strength of his kindness, made her pause. Most people she met wanted something from her: money, connections, favors. Yet here was a man who had given her safety without asking for a thing. "Wait," she said, stepping out into the snow despite the cold. "At least tell me your name." He hesitated, then nodded. Daniel Hayes." She extended a gloved hand. "I'm Claire." He didn't recognize the name, didn't know that Clara Beaumont was one of the wealthiest women in the country, a self-made billionaire who built empires out of crumbling businesses. To him, she was just another soul caught in a storm. He shook her hand briefly, then turned to leave, ready to disappear back into the snow. But Clara found herself staring at his retreating figure, something tugging at her heart. She didn't know why, but she couldn't let this be the end. As Daniel drove away, his old truck groaning under the weight of the storm, he thought of Emily waiting back home. She hated when he was late. Though she never complained, she would probably be asleep by now. hurled onto their grandmother's quilt. He told himself helping Claire had been nothing, it was just the right thing to do. Yet, deep down, he felt an odd spark, a sense that tonight had shifted something invisible in his life. Back in her car, Claire sat in silence. Her world had always been filled with people who looked at her wealth before they looked at her face. But Daniel had been different, selfless, genuine, the kind of man she didn't encounter in boardrooms or galas. She couldn't shake the feeling that their paths had crossed for a reason, and little did Daniel know, this chance meeting was only the beginning. Because Claire Beaumont didn't just forget people who touched her heart, and she was already planning something that would shake Daniel's world to its core. If you want to know what happens next, to how the Snowstorm meeting changes everything, how a mechanic's life collides with a billionaire's gift that will leave you speechless, then stay with us for Chapter 2. And before you go, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the heart-touching continuation of Daniel and Claire's story. Trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. The morning after the snowstorm, Brookdale awoke under a heavy silence. Snowdrifts rose like frozen waves, cars were buried up to their windows, and the world outside seemed paused. Daniel rose before dawn, his back aching from another night on the old couch, because he'd let Emily keep the bed warm. She was still asleep, curled with a book in her arms. He smiled faintly, brushing a strand of hair from her face before heading into the kitchen to start the day. The cupboards were almost bare, just a few cans of beans, some bread turning stale. He sighed, the rent was late again, and the shop hadn't seen much business. Every day felt like a battle he was destined to lose, yet he refused to give up. Meanwhile, across the state, Clara Beaumont sipped coffee in her glass-walled penthouse, the city sprawling beneath her. She hadn't slept. Her mind kept returning to the man in the storm, the way his eyes carried burdens, the way his hands worked with skill and selflessness, the way he had walked away without expecting a thing. She had met thousands of people, but Daniel Hayes was different, and Claire was not a woman who ignored her instincts. By noon that day, a black car rolled into Brookdale, turning heads as it passed the diner and the post office. Few outsiders ever came here, let alone in such luxury. It stopped in front of Hayes' Auto, Daniel's modest garage with its rusted sign and cracked windows. Daniel, hunched over a customer's old pickup, looked up in surprise as the elegant woman from the storm stepped out. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming. "Claire?" he asked, wiping his hands on a rag. She smiled warmly. "I hope I'm not interrupting. I just a broken bar. I wanted to thank you properly." "You already did," he replied, puzzled. "You made it home safe, that's enough for me." But Claire shook her head. "No, Daniel, that's not enough. You saved my life, and I've been thinking a broken bar, maybe I can do something for yours." Daniel frowned, uncomfortable. He didn't like charity. Pride was the only thing he had left when money was scarce. "I don't need anything," he muttered. "I was just doing the right thing." Yet Claire saw the cracks in his armor, the worn tools, the broken heater in the corner, the way his shoulders slumped under invisible weight. She knew this man was struggling, though he would never admit it, and so she decided she would help him in a way that didn't feel like charity but like destiny. Over the next week, Claire kept returning, sometimes with coffee, sometimes with questions about engines she didn't need fixing, sometimes just to sit and listen. Slowly, Daniel let his guard down. He told her about Emily, about the debt, about the dream he once had of expanding the shop into a real business. Claire listened, her heart aching. She had everything: a wealth, connections, power, but she had never seen someone carry so much with so little. Then came the day everything changed. Daniel returned home to find Emily sitting on the porch, grinning. "Danny, you won't believe this. Some fancy lady came by. She said she's your friend, and she left this envelope." Inside was a letter, handwritten in elegant script. "Daniel, some people come into our lives for a reason. You came into mine that snowy night, and I believe fate brought us together. I want to give you something, and not as charity, but as a partnership, because I believe in you. Tomorrow, meet me at the old factory on Willow Street. Trust me." Claire. Daniel's first instinct was suspicion. Why would a billionaire care about him? But something in her sincerity pushed him to go.